Hello and welcome back to Kendo Nagasaki 101, the channel where you can find out all about the mystical and spiritual work of Kendo Nagasaki, the masked wrestler and mystic. My name is Atlantis and I'm the current spokesperson for Kendo. Okay, we're picking up from the video in which Yogensha's skills as a catch wrestler are now approaching the level of the very best at Riley's gym, and the Nagasaki spirit is impelling him to bring everything into focus so he can be the best possible channel for him in the professional wrestling arena. Once again, with hindsight, we know how important Kendo Nagasaki was to professional wrestling right from his debut, but it's not so easy to look in the other direction, into the future, from before he first appeared, and then imagine how such a story might begin. Unless of course you have spiritual guidance, which Yogensha did, but not everything was crystal clear. There was one crucial area in which the results of the teamwork between Yogensha and the Nagasaki spirit simply had to succeed. Having the skills is one thing, having an image appropriate for his public presence was quite another, and to see the origins of this inspiration we need to step back in time a little. Before he'd lost his left index finger, Yogensha had achieved a powerful reputation in the judo clubs he had attended. There was one occasion when he arrived at a club, and on seeing him walk to the changing rooms, absolutely every other competitor fled from the mats because the last thing they wanted to do was to face him. The club actually had to discourage Yogensha from attending because when he did, the mats would remain empty. It was following one such club appearance when, as an example of what a judo champion could do, Yogensha defeated a lineup of all the students and then defeated the teacher, that an astonished young student had invited Yogensha to train at his father's private gym. The young man didn't mention that his father was, in fact, Count Bartelli, the very successful masked wrestler and businessman, but Yogensha went along, and, following a low-key introduction, he recognized that a crucial fated relationship had just presented itself. It was during a weight training session in Bartelli's private gym that the man himself was most impressed at the sheer amount of weight that Yogensha had been bench pressing, and as a shrewd man, he too saw future possibilities materializing. Bartelli was a deep and complex man. He'd become very wealthy from his success in wrestling and his other businesses, which included luxury car sales and a petrol station, but wrestling was his passion. All this fascinated Yogensha, who was delighted to find himself welcome in the home of such an inspiring man. He augmented his judo and weightlifting training by attending Bartelli's private gym more and more often, and slowly, destiny began to unfold. Bartelli had been enduring an increasing nuisance in the shape of a hard, boisterous, street-fighting scrap metal dealer. This man got his fuel from Bartelli's petrol station, and, knowing that Bartelli was an A-list professional wrestler, every time he filled up a vehicle when Bartelli was there, he would challenge him to a fight. He would not heed Bartelli's admonitions that, as a licensed professional wrestler, he couldn't subject a member of the public to such skills, but this just seemed to make the loudmouth's goading ever worse and more frequent. One day it all came to a head when Yogensha was on hand. The scrap metal dealer turned up at Bartelli's garage and made his usual challenge. So Bartelli said, Okay, I give in. This lad is in training, indicating Yogensha. If you can beat him, you can fight me. Now, the scrap dealer was certainly a very hard man, big and well accustomed to street fights and to winning them, but he had no idea what he was taking on in the shape of a youthful-looking but deadly Yogensha. A few days later, they took to Bartelli's lawn, and before he knew where he was, the big, burly scrap metal dealer was upside down and flying through the air, screaming, before landing on his back with an immense thump which completely knocked the wind out of him. Then Yogensha wouldn't let him out of an agonizing and paralyzing hold, and for the first time in his life, this big, burly tough guy found himself completely helpless and utterly defeated at Yogensha's hands. Bloody hell, the man yelled to Bartelli after it was all over, apprehensively sidling out of reach. I'm glad you never took me up on my offers. If this lad can do that, I dread to think what you could do. Bartelli played it all off with the effortless grace of a true professional. Just as he'd imagined, even so very early in their relationship, Yogensha had, as they say, put him over magnificently. As time passed, Bartelli's environment was perfect for the next phase of Yogensha's evolution. Bartelli's home positively brimmed with art and culture, which was to deeply inspire Yogensha and sow the seeds of the visual inspiration he would need in order to bring Kendo Nagasaki to life. But Bartelli was to be a key influence in another crucial way too. When Yogensha did lose his index finger, destiny had already connected him with Bartelli, ensuring that he was in an environment which directed him towards professional wrestling. So once again, we see that there is no such thing as an accident. Bartelli never actually went to Riley's gym, but he did take a keen but low-key interest in how Yogensha progressed there, and as time passed, he saw ever more clearly the emergence of an opportunity to eventually form an alliance which would serve his own interest further. Bartelli became convinced that Yogensha would one day become what was known as a shooter in the wrestling business. These are wrestlers who are at the very top of the craft, who could not be dominated or influenced by any other wrestler, either in the ring or in respect of the behind-the-scenes politics. Someone whose word was the law and whose influence would ensure that wrestling would continue to be the best possible and most spectacular sport for its adoring public. Bartelli was shrewd enough to see that being on good terms with a future shooter would make sure that his career kept on glittering. Being exposed to Bartelli's home and all the beautiful artifacts and culture and refinement it contained, Yogensha's aesthetic sensibilities evolved rapidly, and as he returned to his meditations upon how he would appear whilst channeling the Nagasaki spirit, he began to see how the images which Nagasaki had given him could gel and form a striking and strongly symbolic public image. He needed to reflect Nagasaki's samurai heritage, as well as his subsequent lifetime as a warrior priest, and gradually, as he mused on Bartelli's art, things began to come into focus for him. He was reassured that whilst the Nagasaki spirit had been present during his time as a judoka, it was becoming ever clearer and stronger as he progressed towards a career in wrestling. He was increasingly certain that he was successfully fulfilling both his and Nagasaki's destinies. Bartelli became a true mentor to young Yogensha, who, let us not forget, was still only a young adult, despite having become so devastatingly skillful in both judo and catch wrestling. It is not an understatement to say that the environment of culture and success that Bartelli gave to young Yogensha provided the final catalyst for the fusing of all the previous energies and influences, and finally for the emergence of Kendo Nagasaki. Bartelli's presence in Yogensha's life was clearly destined, another crucial piece of the jigsaw, a key player in the genesis of Kendo Nagasaki, in concert with Abe and Billy Riley. Bartelli knew full well that eventually he would wrestle Yogensha in whatever form he took, but he could never have foreseen the meteoric rise of the spiritual samurai, nor the nature of their greatest and most controversial clash. He did know, however, that the future would be interesting. Well, once again, I'm afraid my time is up for this video, so please do come back to hear some more about the great Kendo Nagasaki. Thank you for watching. I'm Atlantis, and I hope to see you all again very soon. So, as Kendo would say, onwards. Bye-bye.